Hey everyone, welcome to the finish line. So let's just do a really quick video of your final and how to close out the semester. I'm going to go straight to the final page here. As you could see, I'm hoping you're finding that the final, although it's a little bit long, kind of like the midterm, it's not asking for as much as some of the papers that you've written for me recently. And so what I really want you to do is I want you to take a look at three major themes, but I want you to tie all of these major themes into this Michelle Alexander quote. And so from the Rebirth of Caste chapter, you can see on page 45, in the late 1960s and the early 1970s, two schools of thought were offered to the general public regarding race, poverty, and the social order. Conservatives argued that poverty was caused not by structural factors related to race and class, but rather by culture, particularly black culture. And so Alexander introduces this idea of post racial America as a way to, in some cases, explain racial phenomenon without actually using race itself. And so, in other words, if we see racial disparities, for example, disparities in prison representation, disparities in sentencing, disparities in time served, if we can't use race and racism and structural inequality as a way to explain it, then our natural inclination is to go back to culture, family, individuals. And so, what I want you to do in this assignment is to really continue to challenge this idea that we live in a post racial society. And I want you to use Michelle Alexander's book and the three chapters that we're focusing on to really explain how racial inequality still is embedded within some of our social structures, and a lot of the things that are maintained during the days of slavery are maintained through our criminal justice system. And so we don't have to look any further than the 13th Amendment that describes abolition as um, abolition of slavery, except when it comes to punishment for a crime. And so let's go ahead and scroll down here a little bit, and I want you to kind of take a look at three major chapters for me. And so, really intentionally dig in and find statistics, narratives, laws, policies, and court cases, right? So, really intentionally draw from this book. Don't worry about going on the internet and finding other sources. Don't worry about finding things on Wikipedia. Let's really just look at Michelle Alexander. That's all part of the exercise. And so I want you to really focus on three major things. And as you could see, I've really just kind of like showed you exactly where to find it in the book chapters. And if you're participating in our discussion forums, you can roll back to those discussion forums and really see where students are drawing evidence from. So the first major theme I'm interested in, the war on drugs. And so really try to find some of that evidence that demonstrates that the ways in which the war on drugs was disparately waged across communities of color. And if you take a look at the searching, the seizing, right, the stop and frisking, really kind of take a look at some of those things to really argue that although many civil rights laws have passed that have changed the way race relations are happening in America, things like the war on drugs and criminal justice are still maintaining a lot of the racial inequality that people experience. Secondly, let's really make sure we're looking at the judiciary and the amount of power the prosecutor holds. In a lot of the cases we've seen recently, just in right the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen that the prosecution gets to determine: do I want to prosecute you for first-degree murder, second-degree murder, manslaughter, etc. And then from there, you actually see the courts deliberate, or you see a judge deliberate. And so, really kind of take a look at the ways that the prosecution has changed the ways that sentencing is happening, decisions are made, and convictions, and as a result, draw some evidence, right, that really show that a lot of the Supreme Court decisions in the judiciary and a lot of the prosecution that's been done has really been at the disadvantage of a lot of the people of color that we've been talking about in this book. Lastly, take a look at felon identity. A lot of people believe that once you go to prison, you do the crime, you do the time, and you should be released back into society. And this is really not the case in the United States. Formerly incarcerated people have tons of barriers to things like employment and housing. And I want you to really kind of take a look at how this identity of prior incarceration, a conviction record, changes the way, right, that a person is allowed to re-enter and really access their full citizenship in the United States. So focus on these three major themes right here. Write me a strong final if you can. A lot of you are doing such great work before that this is a low stakes final. For other folks, it's 25 points. It's a really great way to recover a lot of points from the semester. Good luck, And when you're done, go ahead and jump into the extra credit forum that I'll scroll back down to. That features not just, right, this kind of post-racial maintenance of racial inequality, but how it intersects with something like gender and sexuality. And take a look at someone like Rakia Boyd or Sandra Bland, and make sure you're in here and you're submitting a 5-point extra credit assignment that really details why, and really use some of the gender work we've done earlier in the semester, and really detail why exactly a lot of the responses to the inequities in the criminal justice system have largely been, right, to inequities experienced by men of color. Why aren't women worthy of the same rage from our society? So get in there, dig in, post, and I'll give you somewhere between 1 and 5 points. And let's make sure we're doing the final first. Good luck on everything. Thank you so much for enrolling in this class. Message me with questions, and I'll see you in the submission boxes.